Welcome to this session. I'm Steve Robertson. I'm a nurse and a health visitor by background, but I've been working in health services research now for the last 20 years. I currently work as the Programme Director for the Strategic Research Alliance, which is a Royal College of Nursing funded 5-year programme of work based at the University of Sheffield. And we have 3 broad programmes of work, one around nursing workforce, one around levels of practice, where we're looking at TNAs and advanced nurse practitioners, and a stream of work around nursing education. And the presentation today links to that last stream. And specifically, what we're going to be looking at are the factors that optimise the impact of continuing professional development, CPD, in the workplace. And it's based on a rapid evidence review that we've undertaken. So when we think about the background, it's obvious that CPD for nursing is incredibly important in the role that it plays in ensuring high quality, person-centred, safe and effective care. In the UK, and I suspect in other places, there have been concerns about the ability of nurses to access CPD. In the UK particularly, concerns about the withdrawal of funding a few years ago. And that's clearly very important. But it's also really important to think about whether or not, when nurses have been involved in CPD, whether they're able then to transform knowledge and skills that they've learnt during CPD into the clinical setting. So there's 2 different issues. One is being able to access CPD. The other is actually being able to utilise what you've learnt in the clinical setting. And it's more this latter one that we'll be looking at in this rapid review. And clearly then, there's a need to understand the factors that optimise CPD impact within the workplace. And we would argue strongly that that has also been very much reinforced by recent COVID events and some of the debates around nursing education that are currently happening. So the review question that we asked were, what are the factors that enable or optimise CPD impact for learning, development and improvement in the workplace at individual, team, organisation and system level? So in terms of the methods we used, the work was based very firmly in Arkski and O'Malley's 6-step review framework, which was very helpful in guiding the work as we went along. We used a population, exposure and outcome framework, again to help steer the work and specifically to help us develop the search terms. The population was registered nurses, so we excluded any studies, for example, that were looking at issues to do with pre-registration or undergraduate nurse training. It was all post-registration, postgraduate CPD that we were interested in. We looked primarily at CPD that had some sort of link to the workplace. This could be off-site CPD, but that somehow had a component that embedded it in the workplace. And we were looking for measures of workplace transformation, so looking at what had changed. After developing the search terms, we searched the following 6 databases. The search dates we restricted to 2002 until we undertook the review in 2019. 2002 was the time when what was then the United Kingdom Central Council for Nursing and Midwifery took responsibility for monitoring ongoing nurse education and ensuring that nurses remained current in their training and practice. So that was the rationale behind choosing 2002. We initially retrieved 3,790 papers, After applying our inclusion and exclusion criteria, initially to the titles, then to the abstracts, then to full papers, we were left with 39 papers that were included in the review. And these papers were a mix of different study designs. We deliberately kept the study design criteria broad for this search because we wanted to gather evidence from as many sources as possible. And as you can see, we ended up with 5 review papers within our review, 7 quantitative papers, 13 qualitative papers, and 12 mixed methods papers. In terms of geographical spread, you can see the majority of papers were from Australia and the UK, with a smaller but important number from Canada, Sweden, and the US. And the reason for this distribution is probably because we restricted the search again to healthcare systems that were broadly similar. We felt if we wanted to make useful comment about the review question, that really we could only do that by looking at healthcare systems that were broadly similar in nature. So what did we find? The factors that we found broadly sit under 3 theme headings with a couple of sub-themes beneath them. The first one is around the importance of individual motivation, so the desire of the individual nurse themselves to undertake continuing professional development. And what we found was that nurses were recognised as being those best placed to take responsibility for their own CPD, and that this was primarily through a critical reflection on practice, and that was both their own practice and those of others, their peers and others around them. Linked to that, this individual motivation to learn was very much improved if learners saw the direct relevance of CPD to their work. And one way of doing that was to target CPD directly at patient benefit, because that can increase individual learning motivation, and it can also help align learning to shared workplace and organisational goals. Nurses are very much driven by the desire to see patient benefit, so linking CPD to clinical practice and patient benefit can be particularly effective. The second broad area or factor was about relational dynamics in the immediate clinical setting. So these were relationships with peers and immediate managers and others in the clinical setting. And what we found was that for individuals and teams, the workplace was identified very much as a valuable context for learning, development and improvement, because it enhanced knowledge translation. And action-based and team-based learning, especially that's multi-disciplinary and professional in nature, was found to be particularly effective in facilitating workplace transformation, especially because it was effective in improving collaborative working and communication. The third area links very much to a positive workplace culture, because a positive workplace culture is the thing that acts to improve the individual motivation and the relational dynamics. So the findings demonstrated that there was a strong association between staff learning opportunities and transformational leadership. So this was about moving away from traditional hierarchies and having strong nurse leaders that were able to empower individual nurses as reflexive practitioners and to empower clinical teams to identify their learning needs. And that very much enhanced self-motivation. Workplace cultures that promoted this sort of academic development also increased job satisfaction, made staff more likely to engage with evidence-based practice, and they helped organisational improvement as well. And finally, it's important that a positive workplace culture supports CPD in very practical ways through providing adequate resources in terms of things like time, staffing, administrative support and finance. So what's important is that these factors are all interlinked and integrate to act synergistically. So a positive workplace culture for nursing CPD inspires individual motivation. It seeks relevance to practice, provides access to collaborative workplace learning opportunities, and it both requires and enables strong leadership. So in short, nursing CPD impact is maximised by approaches that focus on producing autonomous, reflective, innovative practitioners and teams, and these need to be supported and enabled by progressive, transformational leadership at managerial and organisational level. So thinking about the next steps for this work, we're currently completing some consultation work, and the sixth step of Arsky and O'Malley's review framework is about consultation. So we're currently consulting a range of stakeholders, and that consultation will be incorporated in the final review report. And the idea of that process is that that will hopefully help guide the next piece of work that we undertake in the Strategic Research Alliance around our education stream. So thank you very much for listening. You'll see here, if you want to find out more about the work, there's several ways of doing that. I want to thank the rest of the Strategic Research Alliance team. We've all been involved in some way with this particular piece of work. And also a special thanks to Professor Kim Manley, Carrie Jackson and Nikki Ashby, who've also been on this rapid review journey with us from the design stage right the way through. So thank you very much for listening.